Hi, I'm Christina, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. This episode is sponsored by Stratapo Women's Associations Strategy, Opportunity, and Building Better Futures. Our next guest, the Dreammaker, has a journey that is nothing short of extraordinary. Guided by her spiritual team of angels and guides, she made the bold decision to leave her life in Minnesota, and within 5 months, she sold her house, car, and most of her possessions, stepping into the unknown to an island where she knew no one and had never visited in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Maui. Taking a leap of faith to start her first solo business, Kim left behind a 17-year lucrative career in insurance claims to pursue her entrepreneurial spirit to sell her handcrafted jewelry, exploring the world of gold and silver during the economic downturn of 2009. In 2013, after experiencing a profound awakening, she reconnected with her spirit team and found her current business, Finding Your Fiji. Kim began to hear her angels and guide as clearly as if they were sitting right next to her, like she did as a child. Now, as an angel messenger, she relays messages to others from the angels, guides, and loved ones, consistently being told she is spot on by her clients. Please welcome our next guest, energy flow expert and Feng Shui initiative coach, Kim.
Aloha. How are you? Super happy to be here. I grew up in Minnesota. I was born and raised there and spent all of my life there until I made the big move to Maui. And it's really been quite a journey. A lot of people say it took a lot of courage to do that. And I actually disagree. I feel like it wasn't so much about courage as faith and following the nudges and the signs that I was given to make that big shift. And I feel like my purpose is really to help uplift others. And so that's a big part of what I do is helping others find their gifts, find their path, find their Fiji.
Kim, your health word is peace. How do you cultivate peace in your life, especially after the big life transition of moving?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about routines and rituals. And one of the things that I do every morning, usually the first thing that I wake up is meditate. And meditation for me can be just a quiet, like even silent meditation where I'm just focusing on my breathing. I often call in the angels to help clear my mind, right? Because we all have that monkey mind that kind of kicks in the minute we wake up, it seems like. And so I will call them in to help clear my mind and my thoughts and my physical body and my energy fields. And that's usually the way that I begin the day. And then other moments of peace are focusing on things that I'm grateful for. So I'm currently keeping a gratitude journal, kind of it's also a win journal, so I'm looking at gratitude as well as the things that went well or the things that were great about the day. And there's actually a beautiful book that I really enjoy that has a lot of good gratitude practices, and that's called The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. And it's a 28-day practice, which I've gone through a couple different times, and now I'm just kind of taking pieces of it and doing that on a daily. So I like to do that as well to bring peace. And just being out in nature is really, really helpful to kind of calm. That's what I did this morning. I woke up early because my mind was just running. I have a lot of stuff going on, as most people do, and I just needed to clear my head. And so I went for a walk this morning, and just, moving your physical body helps get you out of your head as well.
What kind of practices did you do before you moved that helped you find that inner peace, that happy place?
Yeah. So definitely I've been doing meditation for a long, long time. I also have a practice of connecting, and this is something that really helped me with the move, of connecting in with my angels and guides. And so what I might do is I might write out some questions that I have or some things that I'm struggling with, then go into a meditation, and then when I come out, just let myself write whatever comes through. And that's a really beautiful way to get information and guidance from your angels and guides, and to also kind of get out of your own way, right? So when you're writing, you can just let it flow and let what's coming up come. And that was something that was really, really helpful. I also am very much into using muscle testing. So when I have a question about something, when I'm even trying to price a product, I'll use muscle testing. You can use it in a variety of different ways that you can use it. I use a pendulum most of the time when I'm doing it, but I can also do it just with my hands when I'm out and about. So that's something that I find is very helpful to get that sort of reassurance. And then also asking for signs. So this is something that we can do, and I think people often forget that, they can actually ask for a sign that they're on the right path, or that something is meant for them, or even a sign of like things are going to get better, right? There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, things aren't going so well. Is this going to, am I going to get out of this?" kind of thing. And so the signs are really, really valuable. And that's one thing. When I moved to Maui, I got the information, I sort of got the message that I was supposed to move there, and I thought, "This is a big deal," and I just, like any human, was freaking out a little bit, and I was like, "Okay, if I'm gonna do this, I need a really clear sign, something that I can't mistake, that is just, kind of hit me over the head, kind of can't mistaken it for something else," and I got it. So I asked for the sign, and then very next day I got a package in the mail. I was doing participating in a Secret Santa sister exchange. So it was kind of a thing where people that I didn't know were sending me gifts. And so almost every day there was like a little package on my front stoop. And so I grabbed this package, I brought it inside the house and opened it up, and there were a couple little bags, like little tiny shopping bags that were kind of cushioning things in the top, and I just pulled those out, and of course I was like digging to see what was in there. I don't even remember what the gift was, honestly, at this point. And I know it came from Minnesota. I remember the postmark was from Minnesota, but it was someone I did not know. And so to this day, I don't know who sent this to me. But after I opened the gifts, then I was like looking at the bags that I had pulled out. And the one that was on the very top was like a turquoise, like a light turquoise. And I was like looking at it, and it said Maui Divers Jewelry on it. And I'm like, I still to this day get chills about that, because that was my sign. I was like, okay, that's really clear. It says Maui on it, right? I can't mistake it for anything else. And it was like, yep, that was my go ahead. And that actually helped me really calm down about everything. And I was like, okay, this is my path. This is what I'm meant to do. And let's go. Just started leaning in and started taking action.
Isn't it amazing though? I mean, we don't always pay attention to those little signs. Oh, that sounded like a big sign, but they come to us. And once we make that decision that's like weighing on us so heavy, we often find that peace within ourselves, like, okay, we can take that next step forward.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That is so true. And I feel like that's something that we can create for ourselves, right? That peace that I was just talking to my group yesterday. I have an angel message circle that I do a couple times a month with a group of ladies, and it's so fun. It's kind of like a group reading that we do, and we had one yesterday, and there's often themes that come up. So people have all kinds of different questions, but then there's little themes that kind of thread through. And one of the themes was just make the decision and make it right. So you decide and you go all in on that decision, and like, yes, you just decide that this is the right decision, and you move forward. And that brings peace when you aren't second guessing yourself, when you don't be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I should do it differently, or maybe I should oh, I don't know if this is the right thing. It's like, no, just make that decision, and then make it right.
And you have a lot of people who come to you oftentimes when they're feeling really troubled. Like, I don't know which direction to go. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling confused. How do you help them find their peace?
Yeah. So it's fascinating to me to even just hear the people's voices at the very beginning of a session and then at the end, because you can really hear the difference of, like, sort of that agitation or just like angst, or even sometimes they're very tearful. I get a lot of people crying, right? That are just, they're overwhelmed by whatever's going on in their life. And what happens for me when I'm doing particularly the one-on-one readings is the angels are doing energy work on them while I'm chatting with them. We also do a meditation right away to kind of calm down their energy and to clear out, because oftentimes we're picking up things from other people or the conscious collective. If there's a lot of people that right now, in particular in the US, are feeling a lot of angst around, the election one way or another, right? We just don't know what's going to happen, all of that kind of thing. And so we can take that on. And especially people that are sensitive will take on that energy of that angst that is being felt by everyone, right? So we clear that out, and then they're able to get to, like, okay, what am I really feeling? What is really going on for me? And then what happens, which is sort of magical, is as the angels share guidance and give them actions and share a little bit more about what's happening for them and steps that they need to take, they all of a sudden will calm down, because it's like, oh, okay, I've got support, I've got a team, I've got help, and now I know what to do. I have some actions to take. I know a little bit more about whatever the circumstance is. And it is a snapshot in time. Every reading that I do, it's just, a snapshot for that time. So things can change, they can shift. But in that moment, when you have some specific steps to take, it's always going to calm you down. And that's the thing about I love about feng shui too, is it's you have physical things that you do in the home to remind you of your intentions.
Your line of work is very different, very unique to a lot of people. What is your favorite aspect of it?
Ooh, I just love the puzzle of it. So in both respects, so in feng shui, when I get a floor plan, it's like a puzzle to me. So they tell me, my clients tell me that they have something particular going on. Perhaps they're having difficulty in their relationship or confusion in their career, or they might have money issues. And I can look at the floor plan and decipher, figure out where the problem is, right, in energetically in the space. So it's kind of like a puzzle that way for me. So I just get geeky excited when I get a new floor plan because it's really fun for me. And the same is true a bit for the readings. The difference with the readings when I'm doing readings for people is that I'm just getting out of the way. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm receiving information and I'm just relaying it. But to me, it's always kind of like when somebody asks, some people have some pretty heavy stuff going on, and when I get the appointment, they'll share, these are the questions I have, or this is what's going on. And me personally, as Kim, will be in a space of like, I'm glad I don't have to answer this because I don't know what to tell them, right? I wouldn't know what to tell them. So it's kind of interesting then as the reading unfolds and I get to hear and see what the answer is at the same time they do. So it's pretty interesting. Kind of like improv, actually. So I play improv. That's one of the things that I do in my spare time. And improv, for people that don't know, it's improvisation. So you make it all up on the spot, and you're usually doing it with a partner, at least one other person in the scene, and you're discovering it together at the same time that it's happening, and the audience is discovering it at the same time as well, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we're going to even say before we say it. So it's a little bit similar to that.
Kim, your wealth word is flow. What does that mean to you?
Flow is such an interesting thing because we get a sense of when we're not in flow. That's really easy for us to determine when we're not in flow because things just don't line up. Uh, Somebody will say, for example, I knew it was going to be a bad day when X happened. And it's almost like they get in that sense of like, oh, yep, this is going to be bad. And they're in that state of like expecting the worst, right? Which is not helpful. Obviously, the state of mind is not helpful. So I do feel like a big piece of it is the state of mind. What you expect is what you draw in, and it is very, very much about mindset in the aspect of flow, but it's also this sense of everything is happening for you, not to you. So when something happens in your day that someone might put a label on as bad, that you can look at it from a place of this is happening for me and there's a gift in this. And when I find the gift, that's when I get to keep flowing, right? So that's where I think a lot of times people get stuck is something happens and it throws them off, throws them for a loop, and they're not seeing the gift in it. So flow for me really has to do with a lot of different aspects. I actually have a 5 facets to flow framework that I use with my women's coaching group. And the first piece of it is really about preparing and getting yourself ready, focusing on intentions, the things that you want to draw in. What is it that you're working on? Because we all have lots of different aspects in our life, and we can't focus on all of them at once. And oftentimes we have some things that are going really well, and then there's a couple things maybe that aren't. And so I typically like to have people focus on one thing for 90 days. And that doesn't mean you're letting the rest of it go, but it's just like if you put your focused attention on one thing, that thing is going to shift and start to get back into flow. So that's a piece of it. And then it's also about clearing. So clearing energetic blocks. A lot of times when I work with clients, particularly with Feng Shui, is I can see the energetic blocks in their home. So I can see what's stopping them from moving forward. They might have a front door that is not visible. Well, it's really hard for opportunities to come in if if the front door isn't able to be seen, or they don't have a doorbell even, for example. So sometimes, people, this is a really funny thing. I had somebody that used my doorbell for the first time. So I put in these, you can get doorbells that are not wired in now. You order them on Amazon. And I had put up a couple, we have a main front door that we don't really use, which again isn't a feng shui. I wouldn't recommend that. I do recommend using the front door, but just the way our setup is in Maui, we just don't use that one as much. Everyone comes to the back door. So I put a doorbell on both. But people in Maui don't use they don't use doorbells. They just, because our windows are open all the time, they just call out, "Hello, anybody home?" you know, like literally every single time. I mean, I could be in the back of the house, but they're still just calling out. And friend that's staying in our ohana right now, he actually rang the doorbell the other day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the first time somebody used the doorbell. So it's just funny, but that is, can be something if someone doesn't have a doorbell or a way someone can knock, even a door knocker, that can be blocking their flow, right? So kind of back to this idea of flow. And then the other pieces with this are about connecting with ourselves, with other people. So creating a good communication, for example, and then also connecting with your angels and guides. So that's a big part of it. And then balancing things. So this is also, I feel like with flow, we have the concept of yin and yang. And this is the masculine and the feminine. There's a lot of dark and light. There's a lot of different aspects to that, but you need to have a balance of things. in order for things to flow. If you're too heavy one direction, one way, then you're going to have difficulty getting things flowing. So the balance piece of things is really important. In feng shui, we use the feng shui elements, the five elements for balance. And that is something that is really, really helpful in spaces, but also in life and also with us, because we have, like, you're wearing fire color, so am I. So hot, kind of that hot pink and red are fire colors, which is great for speaking, right? Which is why I often wear red when I speak, because it's a high, it's high energy, it's action, it's passion, it's that type of energy. But sometimes we need more of that yin energy, more of the water energy, which is black or navy blue, and where we want to just be quiet or go within. So there's a balance that happens there. And then you really do need some practices to maintain a flow state. So once you get into flow, to actually maintain that flow state, there's things that you can do as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, to some that might sound completely overwhelming, like, "Well, where do I even start?"
Which is why I have a step-by-step process for it.
But
Mm,
it's funny you mentioned about the door. I find myself wherever I am, if I'm visiting my mother, if I'm at home, if I'm visiting a friend, I like to actually sit close to the front door. There's something about it, and windows. I love windows. Open or
yeah,
closed, I prefer them open, but
yeah.
I love that. That's so interesting that that is mixed with opportunity.
Yeah, that's where the energy comes in, right? Yeah, and windows too are when we think of windows, it's the voice of children in the home. So that's one thing. If somebody's having difficulty with their children, or their child's having difficulty in school or whatever, I always say, check the windows. Is there anything broken? Are there things stuck? Like, do your windows open easily? Are they clean? Right? That type of thing, because there's a correlation between that and the children's voices. And I read pets as children as well. So if there's pet issues, we also look at windows for that.
So in your life, your overall life experience in your flow, you went from one career, uprooted and moved forward. How did that feel to you?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So, working in insurance claims, it was very high stress, high demand. I handled a lot of the worst kind of claims you can imagine: physical, sexual abuse, kids drowning, death claims, paraplegics, burns, you name it. Like, that was kind of, because I'd been doing it for such a long time, I would get a lot of those type of claims. So super stressful. And also, just interestingly at the time, and this is part of why I knew I was meant to move on, is every time I would come into work, I would get a headache. So I'd be fine until I got to work, and then I'd come in and I'd have this headache, right? And that's our bodies give us messages all the time. And so that was a message for me that, this is something that is not good for my health. Right? And so, that transition, though, when I actually made that leap of quitting my job, it is a big shift to go from working in corporate for so many years to working by yourself. So for me, one of the things that I did is found community. So I found some women's networking groups, I got to know people. We were all working on our own, all solopreneurs, and super, super helpful to have other people that, even though I didn't work with them technically, we could bounce ideas off of each other. We could talk about things. It was really, really helpful to have that community support. So that's one thing that was really helpful for me. And then also some structure to the day, right? So, when you're making jewelry, it's kind of like I could sit and do that, and hours pass, but there's also other things that need to be done. There's bookkeeping, there's, other things that have to be done as well. So having some structure to the day, I think, is helpful as well.
Well, hello, I'm Sylvia Twisting. You might recognize me from Broadway, from other health, wealth, and happiness. around the world. I'm a traveler, and I'm on the political channel. You should see me there. But today, I want to share my a wealth of fun and things to do here when you're going to water park. You gotta climb up here, and then you go in these dark tunnels, and then you come out and you splash about. It's fabulous. It is so much fun. Yes, I'm careful about getting my hair wet because it's just, murder to try to get this cloth just perfect. But let me just tell you, it's absolutely beautiful. Look, there's the mountains, there's the swimming pools, there's the places to eat, and, have a good time here. Have some wealth of things to do and enjoy yourself. Kim, you mentioned that happiness for you is freedom. How has your journey brought you closer to this happiness of freedom?
That's an interesting thing with the freedom piece of things because moving to Maui was definitely a choice. And I was lucky to have the freedom to be able to do that. And yet, I didn't know when I got the nudge to move to Maui how I was going to make that happen. Right. It wasn't like I had a ton of money in the bank or anything like that. It was really a faith aspect of, like, okay, this is going to work out. Obviously, I had a house to sell. So I sold that. My townhouse, I sold that, sold some other things, and that made the way for me to be able to do that. But freedom is also being able to make, I feel like, choices for your highest and best interest, because there was a lot of people that gave me sort of the deer in the headlights look when I told them I was moving to Maui. And even my boys, they were grown, but one of them was off living on his own. The other one had moved back in after college, and he had his dad's house that was empty that he could move into. So it wasn't like I was, kicking him on the street or anything like that. But it was sort of interesting, just a funny little story when I decided to move to Maui, and I was going to tell my youngest son. The movie that came out right then was Moana, which is, of course, about Maui. And I took my son and his girlfriend at the time to the movie, and we went out to eat after. And I said, "Oh, what'd you think of the movie? What'd you think of Maui?" And they're like, "Oh, it's cool," and all that. And I said, "Oh, I'm moving there." Right. And they're like, "What?" And my older son as well, just I think he thought it was going to be like, oh, like next year or some other time, and it just happened so fast. Everything happened really, really fast with that. And I think that's part of freedom also, is when you make a choice, then things start to line up for you. So, for instance, my house sold really fast. In fact, it sold twice in 1 week. So I sold it, and then those people backed out, and my realtor, so let's see, went on the market on a Saturday, and Tuesday we had accepted an offer, and then Wednesday they reneged on the offer. And I wasn't upset at all. My realtor was like worried about calling me and telling me, I'm like, no big deal. There's something better. Right. And that's the thing, right? That's part of the flow aspect of things too, is when something like that happens, you realize, oh, that person isn't the person that's meant to own this house. It's someone else. And the interesting thing about that too is, so my realtor went on vacation during that time, and her brother was handling things, and her brother's very much like a, left brain, like uh do this kind of thing. So I don't can't remember how many offers. I think three more offers, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And he's like, you need to make a decision. You need to pick one of these offers, strike while the iron's hot, all that kind of stuff. And I checked in with my spiritual team, and they said, wait till Sunday. I'm like, okay. I heard that like super clearly, wait till Sunday. And I told the realtor that, I said, hey, I'm going to wait till Sunday. We'll give them till noon or whatever. Well, sure enough, Sunday morning, I got a notice that somebody wanted to see the house. So I got my son up and took him to breakfast, and people came and saw the house. They ended up making an offer, cash offer. There was no, inspection needed or whatever that was. I can't remember. Oh, appraisal. That's what it was. There was no appraisal needed, all that kind of stuff. They didn't want me to pay any closing costs. It was like a much better, like, all around, that offer that they made was so much better than the other ones that had come up. And so it worked out, right? For me to be patient and to follow that flow. And so kind of coming back to this aspect of freedom and happiness, there is a freedom in trusting, in having faith that things are going to work out for you, right? And I think that's a big piece of this. And even with the move to Maui, I remember one of my friends saying, "What's your plan B?" And I said, I don't have a plan B. I'm moving to Maui, right? And a lot of people actually, I come to find out later, there's a lot of people and even some of my family that thought I would be back soon. They thought, oh, she'll go for a few months or maybe a year, and then she'll be back. And it's been 7 years, and I haven't come back. And not that I haven't visited, obviously I've visited, but I still live on Maui. And so I think that that piece of things too is having the freedom to make choices that feel right to you, regardless of what anyone else thinks, right? Regardless of what anyone else's opinion is. And there are definitely a lot of people, when you move to a tropical island or a place like Maui, people that are, jealous, or they're like, why do you get to do that and I don't? And it's not really that. It's like, I made a choice, right? I made a choice to do this. I made a choice to follow my dream. To live on a tropical island was something that I'd always dreamed of, because I being from Minnesota, I don't like the cold. I really don't, and I don't like to be cold. So it's, to have that, not even necessarily ability, but just to follow that flow of making that happen was really, true freedom. And to find the happiness with whatever's happening in your life, right? Find some kind of joy no matter what's going on. There's always going to be good stuff. There's always going to be ways that you can be happy about what's occurring, some gifts.
Absolutely. It's funny. It's making me recall a story of somebody I knew who was going through a real difficult situation career-wise, and said to me, "Now I've heard this, and I don't want you to say it to me either, that when one door closes, another one's going to open, because I don't want to hear that." And I'm like, "But that door is just closing for that one room. When you turn around, you're going to see so much more than that one room that are stuck in, but you don't even know that you're stuck in." That
Yeah.
freedom, that flow, that suddenly it's like, ah, I'm free to move now, to just
Yeah.
wherever I'm guided to next.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and I often think that's what happens for people that, get let go, or their company, closes down or something like that. It's like, "Oh, you were meant to leave. You didn't do it on your own. So now we're going to give you a push, right? The universe is going to give you a push to see all the other things that you've missed by staying there."
Exactly. And the other thing, and I think you know this firsthand, is it's more of the fear of the unknown than anything, because everything seems to come anyway, right? Step by
Yes.
step.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a big part of it too, right? In people, when I told them I was moving to Maui, and that I've never been there, I don't know anybody, and their fears were like almost palpable about doing something like that. Like, how are you going to find a place to live? And I don't know. but it's going to work out, right? I had that faith because I knew that it was the place for me. I knew that was where I was meant to be, where I was meant to go. And then there's just so many beautiful, amazing souls that I've met since I've been there. And of course, met my partner there a couple of years in. So almost 2 years to the day I met my partner on the island, and it's just been really magical. It's an interesting thing, islands can be small, and so you do tend to kind of run into the same people in different situations or different places, and people move on and off islands a lot. So that's also interesting too, is like, oh, you get, sort of attached to someone, or you get connected to someone, and then they're just gone. You know?
With this move, within that entrepreneurial piece allowed you some of that freedom to be able to pick
It
up.
did. Exactly. I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't, and I purposely was setting my business up to be able to do it from anywhere. I did a lot of in-person stuff, of course, when I was in Minnesota. I would do events and different things like that, but I started even before I knew that I was gonna move to set it up so that I could work from anywhere. And it really has benefited me a lot even now because I'm currently off island. I'm on mainland right now for a couple months, and I can still do my work because we have this whole beautiful virtual way to do things.
If you had to give somebody advice who's looking for their own personal freedom, what advice would you give?
Get quiet. Get quiet so that you can hear what you are meant to do. Because when you're keeping your mind busy all the time, when you're keeping yourself busy with activities, with stuff, it's really hard to hear the guidance and to hear what you are meant to do. So take some time out in nature, get quiet, even just taking time away from your normal environment can really help you, because it's a shift when we go to a new place. We see different things, we think differently, new ideas come to us. So those would be the two things: get quiet and go somewhere new. I used to all the time in Minnesota, a couple times a year, I would go up to Duluth, which is northern Minnesota, and it's kind of a harbor town, and there's a lot of just really beautiful scenery and things like that. But I would go there to get sort of resituated and to do planning for my business, and just to get out of my normal environment was really, really helpful.
I'm with you. I find myself, even if it's a day, a weekend, a week, my brain, like you said, I let it quiet, like, okay, all the other stuff is gone, but suddenly the creativity just swoop shoots through the roof.
Yes, it does. Yeah, because we're giving it space, right? We're allowing that time and space to come in.
Kim, if you could give the gift of health, wealth, or happiness, which one would you give and why?
I would give health, because health touches everything in your life. It impacts every aspect of it. So in the Feng Shui Bagua, we have a mental map of your space, and there are 9 sections. There's 8 that go around the outside, and the center is health. Everything touches health, and everything is impacted by health. So if you have your health, that is going to ripple out into the rest of your life and help you create the other aspects of things. So, really, the most important thing, I feel.
Kim, here's our question from the previous guest.
How has your view of health, wealth, and happiness changed as you have aged?
That's a great question. As I've aged, I feel like it's a little bit deeper, right? So as you get older, particularly health, you're thinking, you're seeing your parents or your sisters, your siblings getting older and aging and things happening. And it feels more personal, I feel like, as I've aged, particularly with the health piece of things. And I think when I was young, I had ideas about what happiness was, that, oh, if I got married and had kids and, had a successful career and that all equals happiness. But it's not. It's it's an inside job. Happiness is an inside job. It's how you feel in the moment. It's you creating your own sense of happiness. And wealth, I've come to understand as I've gotten older, is way more than just money. There's so many aspects of feeling abundant and feeling wealthy, with how many friends you have, and how much wisdom you've gathered is part of wealth, and the friends that you have, and the ability to, nowadays, get anything you want overnight, basically. Right here on mainland, anyway, you can do that. You can order something and it's like there. You can go to the store and get it, and it's right there. So there's so many other ways, I feel like, to look at wealth, which is not what I thought when I was young. I thought wealth was all about money.
Kim, I am thrilled to have you as a guest. I have learned so much about you, what you do, who you are. You are magical, and oh my gosh, can I just say you are glowing green aura? For anybody who doesn't know, that is all about the heart and love. I just see it.
Aw, that's beautiful. Thank you. I've so enjoyed this. It's just fun to talk about all these juicy topics, right?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you could join us. And I'm hoping that you'll join us on a future panel with some of our other guests.
I would love that.
Terrific. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.